We're here today in an independent Kosovo that is fast developing because of the support and the bravery of a lot of people. Of course, the courage of the fighters of Utica. Of course, the courage of the people who resisted the occupation passively throughout the 1990s, but also because of the support for Kosovo that existed then and exists now in Washington, D.C., and particularly among Kosovo's friends in the United States Congress. And I think we're greatly honored to have today two very good friends of Kosovo from Washington. To my right, Congressman Eliot, Democrat of New York, and I say that because, as most of you know, I've been a Democrat all my life and very active in American politics. Congressman Engel is now the #2 Democrat on the House Foreign Operations Committee. Did I get the title correct? Foreign Affairs Committee, forgive me. And he is well known to most people in this region as one of the co-chairs of the Albanian Issues Caucus in the United States Congress. On my left, Congressman Gary Peters, Democrat of Michigan, is now in second term?
Yes, that's good.
In Congress, serves on the Banking Committee, is a member of the Albanian Issues Caucus, and is, I think, a great addition to Congress because in his previous life, he was professor of government at Central Michigan University. As an academic, he knows a lot about the history of this region, and he's somebody who I hope one day will be able to come here and teach at AUK. Congressman, it's an honor that you're with us today. I understand each of you would like to speak for a few minutes and then have a question and answer session. Who would like to go first? Congressman?
Well, thanks very much for that very kind introduction. I want everyone here to notice that I brought my AUK hat with me. I want you to know this was in my closet in New York. And before I left for Kosovo, I said, I have to take this. So yesterday when I was with the Prime Minister, when we cut the ribbon on the new highway, the new roadway, I was wearing this hat. It was cold. And it was on national TV, so AUK was, I gave a free advertisement to I want to say hello to everybody and thank you for that wonderful introduction when we walked in. Very much appreciated. This is the third time I've been to American University in Kosovo, and I'm always overwhelmed by the young people, the caliber of people who are students here, who are working hard to make a better life for themselves. I believe that education is the key to making a better life for yourself. I know it was the key for me. I was the first one in my family to go to college, and I came from a working class family, and my parents always said to me, go to school, work hard, and things will work out. And I can say it worked for me, I know it'll work for you, and it's just amazing to see so many of you. I know that many of you are from here, from Kosovo. My journey with Kosovo has been a marvelous journey for the past 23 years. It started when I was first elected back in 1988. That was the year that Milosevic decided that he was going to eliminate home rule for Kosovo, and people here had no rights whatsoever. The following year, which was my first year, in 1988, I was elected in 1989, was my first year. My friend Harry Bartari of New York, who was born in Kosovo, came into my office. We didn't know each other then. He started to tell me what was going on in Kosovo. And from the moment I heard that, I became very interested in the people, and followed it ever since. And I was the first one in the United States Congress to go onto the floor of the House of Representatives and call for a free and independent Kosovo. And I'm very, very proud of that. In the times I've been back here, the support has been overwhelming. One of the things that I always tell my friends and my colleagues is that the love of the United States of America from the people of Kosovo is just absolutely amazing. There are American flags all over. I remember when independence was declared 4 years ago on February 17th. There were more American flags in Pristina than I think any other flags. And it truly is the bond that our two countries have that's very, very important. And of course, with all of you going to school here at the American University, it brings you even closer to the United States. And I think that the friendship, the alliance, the working together between Kosovo and the United States is something that will only get stronger as the years continue. I was recalling before about in those years before Kosovo was independent, we used to have rallies, since I'm from New York, we used to have rallies in New York in front of the United Nations. And there's a very large Albanian American community in New York. And together we formed an organization called NAC, the National Albanian American Council. And we held rallies with thousands of people coming to the rallies. And I remember very clearly that our chant was always free Kosovo, because we wanted to make sure the whole world knew that we would not sit still until Kosovo was free. And in that terrible year of 1999, when ethnic cleansing was attempted here, and so many people had to flee their homes, I knew that the only way that could be stopped is if NATO got involved in the bombing campaign. And I went to President Clinton, as did others, but I went and spoke to him. I thought it was important for the United States not to turn its back on the people of Kosovo, to make sure that we participated in the bombing, led the bombing, to make sure that genocide, ethnic cleansing was not carried out. And of course, people all returned. I remember being in Kosovo in 1999, as people were returning, where almost every house in Kosovo was burned. And I still have pictures that I keep in my bedroom on the dresser of Paya and all the burned out houses in those terrible years. So I say all this because while there are difficult times, unemployment is still too high, there are other things that need to be worked on. If we really look at where Kosovo was 20 years ago, and you're all young, so 20 years is practically a lifetime for you, for many of you. But it's really a short period of time if you look at the whole scheme of things. This country has come a long, long way, and I think this country is poised for even better things, even greater things in the future. And so what I want to say to you is that the United States will always be friends to the people of Kosovo. I think the United States' role in KFOR is very important. I think the United States should stay in KFOR and stay here and make sure that we have our troops here to make sure that there's peace and justice for Kosovo. I am very disturbed and unhappy with what's happening in North Mitrovica and the de facto splitting of 1/10 of the country with parallel institutions and other things that cannot be allowed to continue in my estimation. You cannot have a situation where the rule of law is for every place in Kosovo, but not in North Mitrovica. That really cannot stand. And I think that KFOR and ULEX and NATO and the European Union, I think and the United States all have a stake in making sure the rule of law prevails here in Kosovo. So I'm going to end, and I'll be happy to answer any questions after my colleague speaks. Any questions about anything. But I was very honored yesterday to be a part of the cutting of the ribbon for the new highway. And I really want to commend Prime Minister Thaci, because I think it takes vision to build something like that. at a time when other countries, like Serbia, are closing their borders in the Balkans. It's important that Kosovo open its borders and that Kosovo become an integral part of Europe, so that this highway, which will connect Albania and eventually we hope Serbia and Greece and keep going, it really puts Kosovo right in the heart of Europe, really where it belongs. And I think that it's very, very important project. So I was very honored when I saw the Prime Minister in New York several weeks ago, and he asked me if I could come to join him in the official dedication of the highway, and I was very happy to be able to do it. And I think that's the kind of thing that's going to point to a better life in Kosovo. When I first came here in 1993, and I've been here many times since, it was a very different Kosovo, very different. I remember we had the United States Information Service Office, which we opened up in Pristina, and I said it was the de facto American embassy representing a new and independent Kosovo. We've come a long way since then. I know there are problems, but I think the government is addressing it in a positive way, and we'll always have the people of Kosovo will always have my support and strong support of the United States government. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Now, Congressman Pianist, we're looking forward to hearing your impressions.
Well, thank you. It is a privilege and honor for me to be here as well. It's really an honor to be traveling with Congressman Engel, who's my colleague and is chair of the Albanian Issues Caucus. I will toot his horn a little bit because I know he's going to be too modest to do that, but he is truly the expert in the United States Congress when it comes to issues related to this part of the world. And he is sought out by all of my colleagues as the person who is very invested in this region. He's got the knowledge, but more importantly than the knowledge, he really has it in his heart. He is very passionate about what happens here and is committed to the success of Kosovo as well as the Albanian countries and the Balkans region generally. So he has been a mentor for me. I'm a fairly new member of Congress. I'm in my second term, and actually not on the Foreign Affairs Committee. My background is on the investment side. I'm the business guy. I spent 22 years in the investment world and was a VP with a couple major financial services firm. And so when I was elected to Congress, I was put on the Financial Services Committee, which deals with all the banking, insurance issues, which in the United States has been a very big issue these last couple of years with Wall Street reform. I was very involved in the Wall Street reform. If anybody wants to talk about that, I'm happy to do that. I had the privilege of being assigned to the conference committee, which those of you familiar with our system, that was when the House passes a version of the bill and the Senate passes a version, it's got to go into the conference committee to work it out. And traditionally, a freshman never gets on a conference committee. But I was on that conference committee and also for a bill of the size of financial services. So it was a fascinating experience to be involved in that. I also serve on the Small Business Committee because I believe really the engine of growth in the economy, particularly in Michigan. I come from a part of the states that is going through a lot of difficulties right now, high unemployment rate, significant economic challenges, and that really the engine of growth there is going to be small business, as it is going to be here in this country as well, and so very involved in those issues. But you mentioned my professorship, which is nice to be in front of a university classroom again with folks of all ages. Actually, I was working on a change of career from my investment business, going to go into academia and working on my PhD to be that professor, and was teaching at Central Michigan. But I was not happy with the direction of the country. I had a number of folks come to me to run for Congress. We did some soul searching in my life, because when you run for public office, it's your whole family is involved. They've got to be very involved in it. And I decided to run, and I ended up winning. So I had to put all of that on hold. Hopefully I'll be on hold for a while. That's my plan. It'll be up to the voters of my district in Michigan as to whether or not that's going to happen. But what really brought me to this issue is the fact that as I was running, we have in the greater Detroit area a very active Albanian community. I think it's the third largest community in the United States. New York has got the largest Albanian community, then it's Boston, and then Detroit. Who are very active politically, very successful folks, many of them very successful business people in the area. And I got to know them through the campaign. They became good and close friends, and really have treated me like family. I've been to some of the Kosovo Independence Day celebrations, which are big events in Detroit. I welcome you to come to those. If you like good food and good music and dancing, they are incredible events, and I just know when I schedule them, I've got to tell my wife I'm going to be back really late, because they're really incredible events. But through that friendship, I've come to really appreciate what is happening here as well. And so they have encouraged me for the last 3 years to visit. The best way to understand Kosovo and Albania is to visit it. And luckily, I've run into some other great friends, which is the NAC, which is the group that is with us and has worked, as Congressman Eliot has worked so tirelessly on issues of interest to the people in this room, that I had an opportunity to hear. And I can assure you I have not been disappointed. I've eaten more food than I thought I'd ever eat in a 4-day period. Wonderful food, incredible hospitality, but more importantly, just learning about the complexity of the issues that you face. But also I've been impressed by the strength and the perseverance that is just so evident with everybody that I met. I've got ultimate faith that things will work out, that Kosovo will be a strong and vibrant country and continue to strengthen the sovereignty that it has right now. And as Congressman Engel mentioned, I'm committed to making sure that the United States continues to have a very important friendship with Kosovo. We have been invested in this country very early to help create the space for the sovereignty to exist here. It's a commitment that I feel very passionate about as well, and I'm committed to working in the United States Congress to make sure that the United States stands with those commitments that we've made in the past and continue to make those commitments going forward. So with that, I welcome your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm going to give priority in taking questions to AUK students. I know there'll be other opportunities for media questions, but I'm particularly interested to hear from AUK students. AUK students are not typically shy, so I'm rather surprised when I'm not seeing any hands at the moment. Yes. Would people please state their name and their hometown, and perhaps what year at AUK you're in?
Okay. Thank you very much. Welcome, Honored Congressman. My name is Fisnik Latif. I'm an alumni at the University of America. And my question is in regards to economics, especially during and after the Declaration of Independence. Kosovars were really had high hopes, and we also expected a lot of support from America, which we received on the political side, but not so much on the economic side. At the moment we see much more investments from countries which are rather in the region. And my question is, when you come back to Kosovo, can we expect that you bring some, as companies, some potential investors? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be happy to take that question, because I think it is, obviously it's critical to advance forward, is to make sure that the economic activity, and I came here with that interest, kind of the forefront of my mind is to looking at those opportunities and what it's going to take to bring in foreign direct investment, in particular here in Kosovo. I think that probably the most important thing, and I think the challenge for getting investment in the country, at least right now, is there's a feeling as to whether or not the country is stable enough to warrant substantial investments. Most American investors, well, I think really global investors, are going to invest in areas where they know their investment's going to be safe, that you're going to have a stable government, and that the rule of law is going to be followed, that the court system that's going to be independent, a fair, independent judiciary that will protect those property rights that they go in. I think from what I have been learning, there have been tremendous strides have been made here in Kosovo. There probably needs to be more work that needs to be done in that area to make sure that you've got a solid government structure, stable government structure, stable court system, and there is assurance that that rule of law will indeed be followed. We've had discussions since we've been here dealing with the situation, the border situation in the northern part of the country, which certainly needs to be resolved. We probably have some questions related to that, but until some of those things occur, it'll be difficult to attract the kind of investment that you need in this area. Having said that, I think the other positive thing, though, that I've observed, and certainly Congressman Engel talked about the investment of the road, which was a great thrill for me to be there as well, to ride on that highway, which is really an engineering marvel as it cuts through the mountains. You've got to be, while you're working on the government structure and having the stability of a stable government and rule of law, you've also got to be investing in the infrastructure and making sure that those investments are there to move products efficiently across the miles. We have another part of the infrastructure piece, though, is not just the roads, although that's a critical part. The other part is energy. We had meetings earlier today with the energy company. It was out to the mine in order to have a stable source of power. That's going to be very, very important as well, particularly if you're going to bring in manufacturing jobs. I come from a manufacturing state. Manufacturing to me is critical in the United States in order to have a middle class, and that's another thing that's very important to have a vibrant democracy. Is you got to have a middle class, and middle class folks need good paying jobs that they normally get through manufacturing type jobs. So manufacturing is going to be a critical component for the future of Kosovo as I see it, and therefore you need all three of those elements: road infrastructure, you need power that is available cheaply and reliably for manufacturing, and then the government structure that's stable enough. So I think all those things seem to be happening, but as those happen, that is when you start seeing the direct foreign investment that is going to be made. And I think there's great opportunities. Coming from Michigan, the one thing that I've been troubled about is I haven't seen enough American cars on the road. We've been trying to point out, I see a Ford Motor Company car or a General Motors car. I'd like to see more American automobiles, but I know everybody in this audience would say you will buy those cars if they're actually made here. So that's why we want to create that environment so that we can build those automobiles here in the area, and those are good paying manufacturing jobs that are critical to not only a strong economy, but a vibrant democracy as well.
The only thing I'd like to add, I agree with everything that Gary said, is the world, unfortunately, is undergoing an economic downturn. And that's happening, obviously, in the United States as well. I think that's probably one of the reasons why investment and economic assistance hasn't been as forthcoming as I would like it to be. We have a problem in the United States with budget deficits. There's pressure to slow down aid to other countries in terms of taking care of domestic priorities in the United States. I'm a big believer in the United States in infrastructure. I supported the government's infrastructure program, which is very much maligned these days. But I would have even done more infrastructure, because I think if you do that, you fix crumbling roads and bridges and highways, which we have in the United States, because our highway system now is about 60 years old, and you put people back to work. That's why I really thought this road was a wonderful thing, not only because it carries people from Tirana into, from Pristina to Tirana in 3 hours instead of 10, but I think it creates jobs and it puts people to work as well. About a month ago in New York City, we had an all-day conference for investment in Kosovo. It attracted lots and lots of people. It attracted a number of Albanian Americans predominantly, but not only Albanian Americans. There were people who think that there is a good opportunity to invest in this country. But as Gary said, people have to feel that the rule of law is there, and people do. But I think it's important to show that. The other thing is that at some point, I would like to look into a potential donors conference for Kosovo. We have to make sure that it's the right time. We have to make sure that it would be successful. We don't want to have one that won't be successful. A lot of work needs to go on behind the scenes. But I am for the concept of the donors conference to help Kosovo economically, and I think that's something that should be coming down the pipe sooner rather than later, I hope.
Congressman, if you'll allow me a quick follow-up on physics question. The other hat I wear here is as chairman of AmCham, the American Chamber of Commerce, and in that capacity, typically potentially interested investors come and talk to me. And the one thing I hear from them always is doubt, uncertainty around the North, the uncertainty, the instability, the appearance of potential problems that creates. So let me ask you both, if I can. Is the international community moving fast enough or far enough in the North? What can the United States, what should the United States be doing to help move things forward there? Because I believe personally that settlement of the North is imperative before much more foreign direct investment comes in here.
Well, let me take that one. I agree with that. I think the situation in the North has to be addressed and now, sooner. You know, the more we leave it go, the more we let it go, the more we don't deal with the problem, the more we sort of kick the can down the road, the worse it's going to get in the future. It's a problem that has to be resolved, because if it's not resolved, what you have in essence is the de facto partition of Kosovo. I mean, you have that. If the government in Pristina cannot exercise its rightful control over a part of Kosovo, then we're in trouble. If there are parallel institutions that defy the rule of law, then we're in trouble. If there are criminal elements that are allowed to do whatever they want to do with impunity and make all kinds of illegal money and threaten people, and you have gangs coming down from Serbia into North Mitrovica at will, and that's just tolerated, well, then I think that the commitment that was made to Kosovo when there was independence and when finally the Constitution was put into effect, that commitment is not really being fulfilled. And I also think that it's time that the supervised democracy, supervised independence ends. The supervised has to stop. Kosovo is a free and independent nation and needs to be treated as such. And I don't think that free and independent nations can tolerate a situation where part of their country is being occupied. And so I think that the problem in the North has got to be settled, and it really needs to be settled sooner rather than later, because if we neglect it, if we allow it to just continue and to fester the way it is, it's not going to get any better. It's not going to miraculously clear up by itself. It's going to get a heck of a lot worse, and in the future, it'll be even harder to clean up. So I think that's key to showing stability and key to making people feel good that the country is settled, and that we don't allow lawlessness to continue in the north of Mitrovica.
And I agree with everything was said as well. I think you go back to the student's question too about the United States involvement for investment in getting the country, helping the Kosovo move forward. And I think it's part of your question is the international community. I think that we have to be committed to making sure that we continue to support KFOR, that the forces are there in order to stabilize the border. I will be perfectly frank, there are a lot of folks in the United States now that would like to withdraw from various commitments that we have across the globe, and the United States has many. We're withdrawing troops from Iraq that will be occurring at the end of the year. There's strong pressure to accelerate the withdrawals from Afghanistan, as well as other involvements that we have. I mentioned the budget difficulties that we have in the country, which are significant in the United States now. So there will be strong political pressure to back off on some of those commitments.